Welcome back to another Valley Sports Plug Roundtable. It is September 6th, 2023. I'm your host, Chris Patrick. With me, as always, my co-host, Mr. Michael Benjamin, fresh off of a trip from the great state of Utah and freshly eliminated from our fantasy football playoffs.
Of course you got to lead with that. What's going on, Chris?
Mike, it's been, I feel like, a little bit since we got to sit around and chat sports. We had a great time doing our fantasy football draft, from one fantasy sport to another. Had our Diamondbacks recap last week, so I'm excited to be back here. There's plenty to talk about. Just right before we launched, we were talking about how the summer is finally coming to an end. We're rolling into the fall, so we got football, basketball, and postseason baseball coming our way. So, man, I'm super excited for what's ahead. What about you, man? What's going on?
Man, it just never stops, dude. It's crazy. Finally going to get the Cardinals on the field. It's going to be probably a shit show of a season, but we'll get through it together. Diamondbacks are in the hunt, half game back. Got a great call up today as well. We're going to talk about that. But Chris, I was telling you beforehand, dude, I don't think I've ever watched as much tennis in my life. It was something that I just didn't expect. But shout out Ben Shelton getting a big win against Tiafoe, going up against the best probably ever, Novak Djokovic, in the semifinals. But I'm ready to talk about Valley Sports, and I'm ready to bring on our guest, a very familiar face.
Let's do it. Live from his quarantine, we got the sickly boy, Ian, in the house. Welcome back, Ian. How are you doing?
Not bad. I just got back from Labor Day weekend in Colorado, which was dope. And I'm just chilling now. I got COVID on the way back because airports are disgusting. And yeah, now I'm just trying to rest easy so I can be healthy for Pittsburgh next week.
That's the goal. Valley Sports Plug Boy is going to be live in Pittsburgh. Probably won't do a show, but I'm sure we'll get something out there for you. I feel like I say that every time we're about to go on a trip. Mike, last time when we were going to Vegas, I was like, watch out for some content. And then Vegas did what Vegas does.
Hey, don't sell yourself too short. We got some stuff out there. We had a beautiful Tallman ticket, the infamous one where Tallman decided to go with Kirk Cousins, who never wins in the playoffs. That was so close to hitting. But hey, we're going to be bringing some stuff to you. We're going to be out at some games. We're going to be seeing the Pirates versus Ian's Yankees. I don't know how that's going to go for you guys, Ian. But then we're also going to Monday Night Football, Browns versus Steelers. Oof, I am pumped, man.
Dude, it's going to be so fucking sweet. I love PNC Park. I've never been there in person. I've been outside of it. But actually watching a game at the stadium is going to be really cool. And Ian, if you don't do it for me, at least get better so you can see the Yankees.
True.
I want that for you, man.
True.
Even though Andrew McCutchen will not be playing in that game.
No McCutchen.
Oh, is Brian Hayes playing?
He should. Last I heard, he was healthy, but
Right.
it's weird. They were kind of sellers at the trade deadline, and then I feel like in the little bit I've been keeping up to them, they've been winning semi-regularly. Like they're not in like full tank mode, but I think Pirates are just in a kind of a weird situation. They kind of are very similar to the Dbacks, I feel like, in that regard, where they don't have the biggest payroll, so they kind of have to work through their system and building players up there. But we're not here to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? I mean, Mike, like you said, we got some Cardinals topics. We'll roll into the Diamondbacks, go deeper into baseball and other things like that. Wanted to touch on basketball season coming up and some FIBA World Cup action that's been going on. And then we'll wrap it up with some pop culture and video game topics, because it's been a little while since we did that. So not a fully dedicated pop culture stream tonight, but we are Valley Sports, American sports, national sports, and pop culture at Valley Sports Plug. We really do it all. So fellas, what do you say we get into it?
Let's do it, man. I'm ready.
All right. So big news over the last couple of weeks. Like I said, it's been a little while since we got here together to talk sports and all that. The Cardinals made some moves going into their final game of the season and final game of the preseason. And just after, obviously had to trim that roster down from, I think, like 90 something down to the 53-man roster. And they kept making some moves, but none really of note other than this major one, which was cutting veteran quarterback Colt McCoy and trading for Joshua Dobbs, who is I guess you could call him a veteran quarterback at this point, but he's not a veteran starter by any means. He has thrown, I think, less than 100 passes in his NFL career, originally drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I know a little bit something about Josh Dobbs. At one point in time, Ben Roethlisberger had his full faith in Dobbs to be the future of the Steelers franchise, and kind of see how that went down. So, Mike, what are you thinking of the Joshua Dobbs signing? Is this just another indication of how much we're trying to win this season?
That's a crazy narrative, I think, to me, where people are saying to make the trade for Josh Dobbs was a full tank mode effect. If you really wanted to go in full tank mode effect, you either start Colt McCoy, whose noodle arm had caught up to him finally, or a 5th-round pick in Clayton Tune. You're really not going to be successful at all. Whereas with Joshua Dobbs, he knows the system from Drew Petzing and his time in Cleveland. He's had some starting, I wouldn't say success, but he has experience under his belt. Like if you're looking last 2 games with the Titans last year, about 60% completion percentage, a little over 400 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So is he serviceable? We're going to find out, and we're going to find out quickly because it's crazy. The Cardinals make this trade on August 24th, and 2 weeks later, he's starting without ever putting on pads really in a preseason game for this team. It's a new era, and it's just all so brand new for me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, Chris, but I like the move because, man, that joint practice with the Minnesota Vikings, I think really put a lot of things into perspective for this front office and this leadership at the coaching level. And basically they understood that, man, Colt McCoy does not have anything to really bring to an NFL football field anymore. And, I'll tip my cap to what he was able to do when Kyler Murray went out those couple of games, but it's time to try and get some fresh faces in here and see who might be part of this future. I mean, obviously, I don't think Josh Dobbs is going to be a starter unless he just absolutely wows and Kyler Murray isn't able to come back to any kind of form of himself. But we already saw from a lot of the 53-man cuts, a lot of the Steve Keim era guys are gone now as well. So it's all systems moving forward, and I will take that at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, Colt McCoy was definitely at the end of his career, and we've kind of known this not just through training camp, but I think even a little bit at the end of last season, and the injury wasn't completely his fault. But I do think Joshua Dobbs does give us a better chance than maybe, Jeff Driscoll or David Blau, as much as we love David Blau. It's funny to me that John Gannon is still going to stand up there and say, we're trying to win games. I want killers. I want guys that are going to battle every Sunday. And it's like, that's all well and good, but we can see the product you're putting on the field. We can see these players are like, the majority of our roster is constructed from guys that would probably be on the end of the bench on most other teams. And so him continuing to trot out this line of we're trying to win all these games, blah, blah, blah. I get that. That is what the head coach is hired to do. I know we always talk about tanking for the number 1 pick. It's common in basketball too. But at the end of the day, like, that's more like GM level stuff. But it's hard for me to sit here and imagine that him and Monty Ossenfort aren't having these conversations about a long-term strategy. I mean, this is their very first season at the helm of the organization. So it just seems like, sure, you can say that all you want. And sure, I think having Josh Dobbs start, and then if he doesn't do well, you still have Clayton Tune rather than just throwing Clayton Tune to the Wolves right off the bat. But when we look at the bigger picture of it all, there's still that Kyler question, right? When is he going to come back? When is he going to be fully ready to go after this injury and his surgery? And from what we've seen in the flight plan and other clips coming out on social media, it seems like the rehab is going really well for him. And initially when we were thinking week 9, week 10, or maybe not at all this season, I think that timeline could be moved up a little bit. I still don't think that week 9, week 10 range is too crazy. But he is on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform or unfit to perform, whatever the acronym is there, which might correct me if I'm wrong. That means he can't play for the first 4 weeks.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, he'll be out for at least the first 4 weeks.
Right. And that doesn't even guarantee that he comes back for week 5. And I don't think we should read too much into that at all. I do think we've had this conversation, and so I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I just think they need to see what they have in Kyler to decide what they're going to do this offseason. And so he has to play a significant amount of games this season. I don't think 4 or 5 games is a big enough sample size. Like maybe 7 to 10 is a better sample size, but I want to see him back as soon as he's ready to go. I don't think they need to baby him. I think they can do that schematically, right? Where they aren't having him do as aggressive plays. They're telling him, hey, if you're about to, get yourself into a bad situation, just throw it away. Don't try and extend the play. Don't try and do too much. Because that's kind of, I don't want to blame him because that's like, I never want him to not be competitive or second guess himself, but he got injured on a non-contact play where he just planted wrong, cut wrong. And that could happen on any play, right? It doesn't have to be him doing too much, but on that particular play, it was one where he was out of the pocket and he was sprinting, but it's like building him back up to being comfortable with that is going to take some time. So I know this is kind of long-winded of me getting this point out, but I'll just say it again. I think they need to bring him back sooner rather than later. So I'd like to see him back week 5, somewhere between week 5 and week 9. I don't want to see them wait until halfway through the season to finally roll him back out to a team that's 1-6, 1-7, 0-8, whatever the case may be. What would your timeline be for bringing him back? I realistically, or in a perfect world.
You also have to think about the timeline of when he got hurt last year. Was it week 12? So it was towards the end of the season, maybe week 13, that game against the New England Patriots. But this could also go into what's happened with bringing in Josh Dobbs, right? Like, I know we talk about the criticisms with Jonathan Gannon about talking about, well, you guys just keep saying that you're here to win. You're going to win. It's like, well, but you have to see the product around you. They saw it. So that's why they made some of the moves that they did. But maybe they brought in Josh Dobbs because he is really familiar with Drew Petzing's system, like I said, from his time in Cleveland. And maybe you can scrounge out some of these tough wins to start this season, because the plan is to have Kyler Murray come back by week 6. Because now we have to start thinking about the plausibility of having a top pick in 2024, Chris, which I know we're going to get into here. So I'm with you. We need to get Kyler on the field as soon as possible to see if he truly is a part of this future. Because now with all this Caleb Williams nonsense, we're going to have to start thinking about if that possibility of having the number 1 pick is going to be a transition to a quarterback of the future, or if we have to make some moves, get some more draft capital, and figure out something down the road. And at the end of the day, I would just love to have Kyler Murray still be a part of this franchise, because I think he can still be a difference maker. It's going to be tough with that injury. I know it is, but he's young enough. He should be able to come back. And he's proven that he did have the right trajectory with this Arizona Cardinals franchise until everything fell off of a cliff last year, pun intended. But Chris, you got to tell us what's going on with Caleb Williams now, and his dad saying some craziness about going back to USC.
Yeah, man, you gotta get a load of this. So, Ian, I'm sure this is a topic we could have you touch on a little bit here with us. So there's this, just to kind of set the picture, there's this guy, Caleb Williams, who is a quarterback for the University of Southern California, or USC. He's like one of the best quarterbacks in college sports right now. Preseason projected. The season just started this last weekend. They think he's going to be like clear-cut Heisman winner, which is like the best player in college football. And so the talk around town now is, with the Cardinals potentially having the first, second, or maybe the first and second pick in the draft, do they consider, to put it in like basketball terms, I'm not trying to dumb it down, I'm sure you get the idea, but for everyone else that might be watching, it's like if you are tanking for a new starting point guard and you already have a really good starting point guard, or someone who you thought was going to be a star point guard, but now in the draft you could get a fresh star, basically. And so what this dude, his father came out and said, I'll just read this quickly from an article I pulled. I think it was the Bleacher Report article. Caleb Williams' father told Sam Schaub of GQ that his son could return to school if he feels uncomfortable with the team that might select him, the Cardinals. And he said, here's the quote: "The funky thing about the NFL draft process is he'd almost be better off not being drafted than being drafted first. The system is completely backwards, he says. The way the system is constructed, you go to the worst possible situation, the worst possible team, the worst organization in the league because of their desire for parity gets the first pick. So it's a gift and a curse. I mean, I've talked to Archie Manning, and his career was shot because he went to a horrible organization. I've talked to Lincoln Riley, and Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray struggled because of where he was drafted. Baker Mayfield struggled mightily because of where he was drafted. The organizations matter. He's got 2 shots at the apple. So if there's not a good situation, the truth is he can come back to school. So basically saying that he doesn't like how the draft system is set up, which I don't know what he wants. Like, I'm not saying you should reward the worst team in the league necessarily, but you do want parity in your leagues, right? You can't just have a full-on lottery every year. So, Ian, I'll just kick this over to you for your, just overall sports perspective. Do you think that, I guess I'll ask you this, do you think that his father has a valid point in his concerns about his son's career, where if he gets drafted to a garbage team, it'll be a detriment to his career? Or do you think it's more like a challenge to, this is a professional sports team, do you give them a shot and try and turn the organization around, basically being a guaranteed starter from day one?
Yeah, good question. I mean, as you know, out of my element here, but thinking about how it would work in basketball, because I think that would be a little more relevant or an easier comparison to football than, say, baseball or anything else. These are things you have to kind of weigh, and if I'm not mistaken, the front office is supposed to be interviewing their draft prospects and seeing how they feel about where they're supposed to go. I think it's a very bad look on Caleb Williams' father part to make this kind of thing public. That, to me alone, looks like a red flag. If I'm the Cardinals, with having Kyler Murray, even though he does have his problems, at least he does want to be there. So if I was the Cardinals, I wouldn't take this guy. Like I said, very out of my element. I also know that isn't there something with Heisman winners? Isn't there like a curse or some nonsense there?
Honestly, maybe. Like, who are all the most recent Heisman winners that have been, like, Johnny Manziel won the Heisman. He's no longer in the league. Baker Mayfield, I'm pretty sure, won a Heisman, and he's looking like a backup at best. Kyler Murray, the guy who he would be replacing, won a Heisman. Yeah. So, yeah, there's no guarantee, because the college game and the NFL game, although it is technically the same sport of football with various little rule tweaks, it's enough to where it's a completely different game, is what I'm trying to say. So it's not always a guarantee that your ability to play college sports well is going to translate to the NFL. And I think that goes for basketball too.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess with that in mind, I think it would be weird for the Cardinals to take Caleb Williams, given what his father said about the team. You would want to fill a hole somewhere else, maybe just get past him, let him get picked 2 overall, or go to an organization that won't, as he said, waste his career. Because if he's just going to go back to school, I mean, that's the end of that pick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, if I'm the Cardinals, then fuck that. I'm staying away from that.
Yeah. And I think, like, we're still in that era of sports, like the what's his name? The Lonzo Ball's dad, LeVar Ball.
Yeah.
And like Ja Morant's dad. So it's like, I don't love parents being overly involved in their adult children's, careers and things like that. Cause he's 18, 19, but that's still an adult. And when you're talking about, being a grown man making decisions, I've always felt, and even when Lonzo was doing, I know it's hard. Like, I love my dad and I respect my dad. And I don't doubt that these fathers have their son's best interest in mind to a certain extent, but it also seems a little self-serving as well, to where, it's like that fine line. Is that fair, Mike? Is it kind of like, could it come off as selfish on his dad's part? Or do you think it's all coming from a place of, I just want my son to have the best future?
Yeah, it's really hard to find the middle ground there. I think at the end of the day, he has the best intentions, right? But this is such unprecedented time that we're coming into now with these draft picks that are coming specifically out of college because of these NIL deals now, right? Because the whole thing in the back in the day was, why would you risk the opportunity to go make money right now and basically start that timer for when your second contract can hit in where you make the big money? Well, guys like Caleb Williams, who are already Heisman Trophy winners, can get $20 million, $30 million in NIL deals like that within, 2 to 3 days. So it really is an option that he has if he doesn't see the landscape falling the way that he wants to. At the end of the day, I mean, Caleb Williams, you risk injury, right? Which is the biggest thing. That's why you don't want to stay. But if it's just about money and it's about, the best fit for a franchise, then I guess stay. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You're going to get drafted by a crappy team, even if it's the Cardinals. The shitty thing, though, for us is that we've just had a lot of things that have been magnified within, just the culture and football landscape that a lot of people know about. Now we have, the Steve Wilkes coming out basically backing the burner phone stuff. And it's just more things that we're trying to get over the hump of, but keep pulling us back. And it's going to take some time for the Arizona Cardinals to get back in good graces with a lot of people. It's going to take years, guys, which is a tough thing to really say and be honest about. But at the end of the day, this scares me, man, because his dad's talking about his conversations with Archie Manning, who was the last guy that basically held out after being a top pick. Eli Manning.
Yeah.
He's talking about, the conversations that he had with Lincoln Riley. What is the main quarterback that is on a franchise in the NFL that he was talking about as well? Kyler Murray with the Cardinals. It's just, he didn't specifically say Cardinals, but all points are basically saying, if it's the Cardinals, I don't want to be anywhere near there. So maybe that's another reason why Jonathan Gannon is really actually trying to win with the pieces that he has around, but it's going to be tough, man. I think the last thing I'll say about is I would say that Caleb Williams' dad's comments are a little bit inaccurate and false when you talk about the struggles that Kyler Murray had. Kyler Murray had struggles last year, right? And a little bit before last year when he was trying to get his contract situation done. But you're talking about a guy who won the Rookie of the Year, who got this team to 10 wins, who took this team to the playoffs. His first 3 years, everything was up. Yeah, you have your trials and tribulations like general, but I would say everything was on the proper trajectory, even with the crappy front office and the inept head coaching that we had. So I think that's a false statement, but good luck to this kid, man. I got to echo what Ian said too. If this is his feelings about it and it's really Caleb Williams' feelings, I don't want him around my franchise. And that's just it. I don't care how transcendent of a player he is at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. You want guys that are on board and bought in. And Kyler was, and you're right. You're absolutely right. It's completely unfair, that criticism, because not only the Rookie of the Year, but the Cardinals bent over backwards to put him in the best situation possible, hiring a guy who wasn't even qualified to be the head coach, but that they thought might be a good fit. And as far as I can remember, Kyler really liked Cliff Kingsbury and they had a really good relationship. So that was all in an attempt to make Kyler happy. And then on top of that, making him the highest, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league coming up here. So it's I guess I can't sit here and criticize his dad or question his motives, because if it was just about money, he's still going to get paid no matter what garbage team he's playing on, as long as he can stay healthy. So it can't be about that. It seems like it might genuinely be about winning. These guys, obviously competing at the highest level, have a high desire to win. It's just, there's so much to go into that comment. And I don't want to sit here and spend too much more time on it. But the last thing I'll say is I hate the criticism without offering any solution. You can say, oh yeah, it's such a bad system. All these horrible teams are getting the best draft picks every year. It's yes, because the league wants them to get better, create more parity, like you even said in that comment. And I just wonder what his alternate solution would be. Just get rid of the draft completely. Just these guys can sign wherever they want. And as long as it goes within the salary, that's all well and good. Or just have it be a completely randomized lottery draft, because you're still not going to be happy, right? Because if that randomized, whatever, doesn't matter where you finished, draft lottery comes down, there's no guarantee it'll be a good organization. And what organizations are even like the best top tier that don't already have their franchise quarterback? You're not going to Kansas City. Sorry, Patrick Mahomes is going to be there for a good long while. You're not going to Buffalo. Josh Allen is a fucking beast. You're not going to Baltimore. Lamar Jackson has solidified himself there. Like, Caleb Williams' dad, where do you want him to go that isn't a team that already has a franchise quarterback? It doesn't make any fucking sense. But those comments, I mean, I guess they just don't really surprise me, because like you kind of said there, every organization, although they have the same rules and, governing body, they all operate a little bit differently. And there have been a lot of criticisms about the Cardinals organization. And I don't know that anything's changed. I mean, the owner is still the same. Yeah, we got a new GM, but when it comes down to paying for Gatorades, paying for meals, how the families are treated, that's stuff that isn't necessarily going to be on the GM, and I don't think is on the GM at all. They're just making football decisions, not organizational structural positions. But it's just going to be real interesting. I do think the last thing I want to say on the Cardinals topic is just the interesting thing about Jonathan Gannon not being willing to name a starter yet for a quarterback coming up on Sunday. I think everyone knows or feels like it's going to be Josh Dobbs. It seems like the clear-cut answer. But do you think that that's smart to try and play I don't want him to know our next move? Is it really going to be beneficial to not name a starter until the morning of?
Well, at this point, it's been leaked, so it's like you just might as well go ahead and jump in the pool completely. Chris, this is the thing with Jonathan Gannon. This is all new to him, right? He's figuring it out as he goes, and at least he does have his people around him, right? With Nick Rallis, Drew Petzing, Monty Austinfort. It's a core group of guys who are in this together. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're consistently bouncing ideas off of each other and say, hey, we just pulled the trigger for this trade, cut our guy who we figured was going to be the starter for week 1. And we're going to make people think that we're going with the 5th round unproven rookie. No, you're going to go with the guy who has NFL experience. I don't care if he just came into the building, because you have no other options, right? So you can think of it as competitive advantage. Anything to get this team some kind of an edge is what we're going to have to do this year to get games. So I get it, and get wins, because it's going to be massively hard with the schedule that we have and the players that we do have. And now I'm looking back at our season predictions. Chris, I might have to take back the win against Washington, because Chase Young is healthy. He's going to be coming off the edge like a freaking hamster on a wheel, just going and going. Terry McLaurin looks like he's going to be ready to go as well. So it's going to be a dogfight, because also Washington sold out season tickets for the first time in a decade. So
really?
It's going to be loud and crazy in the nation's capital on Sunday. So,
man, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to have a Tallman ticket coming out. So for those that like wagering, Tallman is currently in Cancun, I think, in southern Mexico there, just lounging on the beach, being a lazy fucker. But we love him. We love him. I think you're right, man. I think in my prediction I had this as an L anyway, but the Commanders just beat the Ravens and broke their preseason streak, 20-something games.
I think it's 24 games. That's wild.
Preseason matters to the Ravens. Ian, we won't bore you any longer with all this football conversation. I want to transition. That's the word I'm looking for.
Translate into the next topic.
We're going to talk about baseball. We love it. We're about a month away, I think a little less, maybe a little more than a month away from the end of the baseball season. So September call-ups just happened last week, where the roster expands. Do you know how much the active is it only? So I'm a little new on the rules here. So if you know, please let me know. Is it that you still have your 40-man roster and you can have more on the active MLB roster, or does it expand past the 40-man roster?
I believe it expands past 40-man, because The only reason I say that is just judging based off my recency bias, where I saw the Yankees cut maybe 2 players and called up about 6. So I think you have a bit of an extension on who you can call up for the rest of the season, and then it goes back down when it comes to be playoff roster time. But the reason that they do the call ups is for the playoff roster, so that if you have rookies that you need, they can be eligible to be in the playoffs once that time comes. I believe the cutoff for that is September 1st.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So there were a ton of moves being made last season. I do want to get into, of all the teams, I want to talk a little bit about the Los Angeles Angels and kind of what their last week and a half looked like. They got the news that Shohei's done pitching for the season, might need Tommy John surgery. And they dumped like half their roster or something like that. But first, I don't want to bury the lead here. I want to talk about the Cardinals. I'm sorry, the Diamondbacks. I want to talk about the Diamondbacks. They're 72-68, still very much in the wild card hunt. And starting tomorrow, have a really big series against the Chicago Cubs, who currently hold that second wild card spot. And then I'm just seeing here that the Marlins have won 6 straight, and they're putting themselves back in the conversation. And we're sitting down here neck and neck with the Cincinnati Reds, who have the tiebreaker over us, but we're each a half game back in the standings. There you go. You can see it there. Yeah, kind of a sketchy race in the NL West here. It looks like it's down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams for 3 spots. There's 3 wild card spots to get reserved, right?
Yep.
So it makes me nervous, man. I'm not gonna lie. This team has been kind of up and down on a roller coaster. I just had a real rough series against the Dodgers where we got swept. Looking a little better against Colorado, but still gave up 1 game there. You can't be losing games like that to Colorado when you can see they're the worst team in the National League right now. Absolute bottom of the barrel. And I get it. A sweep might be a lot to ask for, but when you're trying to be a playoff team going up against the worst team in the league, this time in the season, you gotta sweep them. You got to get the job done. And especially when you're cruising and hunting for a wild card like this. I mean, I don't think I can understate it, but Mike, how big is this series coming up against the Cubs?
Honestly, I think it's everything. This is going to be make it or break it time. Really disappointed in that second game against the Colorado Rockies. The bats went dormant once again. And Torey Lovullo just seems to be over-managing, man. Nick Ahmed is not it, man. He is not it. Look at his stats since August, man. He's 9 for 53 with 15 strikeouts. I can't have more strikeouts than hits. I know it's tough, but, they put him in to go up against the lefty, but he hasn't been hitting lefties very well this year. I'd rather just go with Perdomo at that point. But, we've still had our struggles at third base. We can't get anything out of Rivera. I mean, Evan Longoria has just been a shell of himself. He's an older guy. That's what you expected, but thankfully, we were able to crawl out of the depths again today because we were down early 5-1, and then Alek Thomas just went crazy. But this is the time of year where if you start looking at the matchups that are coming up here, man, the Diamondbacks honestly have some really good breaks that have fallen their way, it seems like. We know the Mets have just sold off and they're not really competing anymore anyways. San Francisco has lost 6 straight, so we don't know where they're going to be by the time we do match up with them on September 19th. But then you got the Yankees who have been struggling this year, the White Sox as well. And to finish the year, we're going up against the Houston Astros, who really, if you think about it, either than the Cubs are the only ones who are truly in kind of a playoff hunt right now. So this is the time to take advantage of the schedule, and it's all going to come down to pitching once again. We got to have our 2 aces really put it together, and we got to win this series against Chicago. I know it's going to be tough because it's a 4-game stretch, and it's in Chicago. But if we really want to keep within this fight, dude, we have to win this series. This is what it comes down to in the last 2.5 weeks of baseball, right? If you want to make the playoffs, and especially when you're just a game or a few games behind fighting for a final spot, you have to win out at this point.
Yeah, without a doubt. They need to win every series from here on out. Especially, I didn't realize that it's Cubs, what is it, Cubs, Mets, and then Cubs again. So we're going to have, I think, 5-6 games against the Cubs there, it looks like, to really start hopefully beating them up. And we have to win. We have to win both of those series. Technically, I think we have to win both of those series for my money, but you need to win. If you clump them both together, you just need to win that collective series and win more games than the Cubs. That's my bare minimum goal and expectation for them. And I think they can do it. Mike, like you said there, we've known the writing's been on the wall for Ahmed. We had Jordan Lawler in the system where it was only a matter of time before he got to come up. And I think we did pose the question, I think a couple weeks ago on our Heat Check podcast, where do they call up Lawler? Why didn't they do it right during the September call-ups? But better late than never. He will be joining the team tomorrow. Our number one prospect in the organization, Jordan Lawler, has been called up to the major leagues, and the Diamondbacks have designated Nick Ahmed for assignment, which means he will no longer be with the organization after nearly a decade. I think we traded for him in late 2012 and got called up for the first time in 2014 and has been on the 40-man MLB roster ever since. So I got a lot of love for Nick Ahmed. He was a former Golden Glove winner, just an absolute stud on the defensive side of things. But when you need people who can hit the ball, he just wasn't getting it done anymore at 33 years old. And I think he'll probably land on a roster somewhere, kind of like David Peralta, where maybe not an everyday guy for us, but we'll still find some playing time somewhere else. I'm sure there's always a team that'll need a veteran shortstop out there, a little bit of depth. But with Perdomo and now Lawler, I think we're pretty set at the shortstop position. And I think that played a big role in us offloading Jazz Chisholm a couple years ago, is just knowing kind of what we had and where we're going, where you don't need this logjam at shortstop of talent, where you can move off and get a guy like Zach Gallen, who is at least in the Cy Young conversation, but I don't want to get too much off topic here. So we got Lawler coming up. We got Nick Ahmed going out. Ian, I wanted to go back to this because I did just see that there when Mike had the schedule pulled up. This is totally off topic, but if you were still living in New York, would you go to a Mets game, an afternoon Mets game, for $2?
Yeah, probably.
Hell yeah, $2.
Yeah, it's from where I lived in New York. It was kind of a pain in the ass to get to the Mets Stadium, but $2. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to justify $2. I'd be spending more money getting down there because it'd be a $30 train ride, and then it's like $4 to get on the subway. So like exponentially more expensive just getting to the stadium than getting a ticket. But I mean, shit. I mean, if I had time to kill, yeah, absolutely.
That's usually my experience when I can snag cheap tickets like that, is like between gas and beer and whatever concessions I get. It's not a $2 ticket. It's not a $5. It's a $50 to $100 trip, but it's about the experience, man. Have you ever been down to Queens, and what is that, Citi Field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been there. It's okay. It's a weird stadium. I remember, I don't know if they still have it, but I remember being weirded out that they had a Verizon store in the stadium, like in the middle of center field, so you could just get your contract updated while you're at the fucking Mets game. I don't know why you would ever do that, but it was there. The other big feature was Shake Shack. They had a Shake Shack in the stadium, and that was on point. I used to go there to see anytime Roy Halladay was pitching for the Phillies and he was in town. I would try and catch that because that was my dude. But yeah, it's not the worst stadium I've ever been to. It's decent.
I mean, they got enough money that shit. I think they have one of the top 5 payrolls in the league, so stadium should be at least halfway decent. But Mike, getting back on the topic of the Diamondbacks here a little bit, are you excited about the Lawler call up?
Dude, I'm stoked, man. Like we were saying before, I wish it would have happened right when the September call-ups came around, but you just never know, man, with these teams. And the kid has been killing it in Reno, dude. Only 16 games, hitting .358, 5 homers, 19 RBIs, and he's a speedster on the base paths. If you look at his combined minor league baseball stats this year, 36 combined stolen bases. I mean, he's got some power. And I think an interesting tidbit about what has happened with this call-up as well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at third base, guys, with the struggles that this team has had. Because I think last night he was starting at third. Had 2 RBIs, and he's an interchangeable kind of guy. So if you can continue to play Perdomo at short and Lawler fits at third base, and you can add some more pop to the bat, yes, man, this is what we need. We need to make sure that we're keeping pressure on the base paths, scoring runs, because this pitching staff is still so freaking highs and lows, riding the roller coaster. There's no consistency. You can talk about the series against the Dodgers. Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen probably had 2 of their worst outings of the year when we needed them to perform. I know it's tough, especially the Dodgers, who have they were 24-6 in August, like just ridiculous on a roll. But this is the time where if we want to make the playoffs, we have to win. We have to win now. So if you can consistently keep the bats going, you'll be able to scratch out some wins exactly like today. I mean, Zach Davies sucked today again, and we were able to rally and just dominate, down the stretch in today's game. So, yes, bring on the young gun. Let's go. Let's go.
And I think that's where we found a lot of our success in the earlier parts of the season too, is where when pitching was struggling, our bats were able to come in and make it up, where even if we gave up 5, 6, 7 runs, our team on offense was putting up 8, 9, 10 runs, or like we saw today, I think 12 or 15, something like that. Not bad. And you're right. At third base, I wouldn't hate seeing him there. Obviously, the Jace Peterson experiment hasn't been the greatest. We did need a guy to kind of fill in that hole that Josh Rojas left. But between him and Emmanuel Rivera, just not quite 100% getting the job done there at third. So however you choose to rotate those guys in. And for all my criticisms of Mike Hazen, I'm really proud of the way he's kind of handled the last couple months between riding that line of at the trade deadline, do you give up the farm to go all in, win now, or do you find a happy medium somewhere where you can still try and make a push for the playoffs and being competitive this year while also keeping your franchise in a competitive position for the next 2, 3, 4 years, ideally. And I think we're right there. I mean, I've said it, a couple times over the past couple months. I don't expect a World Series. I don't even expect a deep playoff run from this Diamondbacks team. But what I do expect and what I am hoping for is a playoff appearance. I'd love it if they get that wild card spot, and not just get it, but win the wild card spot and advance to the divisional series. That would be outstanding. That would be a great first step into showing that this team is a competitor, and that in turn will help any potential free agents we might be able to attract in the offseason, because I feel like a lot of these baseball players will just kind of chase the money, and it's not always 100% about winning or that final World Series hopes and desires. I not saying it's the case with Freddie Freeman, but he had a chance to stay with the Braves. They didn't give him as much money as the Dodgers were offering, so he decided to go sign with them. But does that hurt his competitive advantage and ability to win games? Absolutely not. The Dodgers are one of the best teams in the NL, if not the best team in the NL. And the Braves were also. So it was kind of a win-win for Freddie, right? And that might not be the case for other players. I haven't really been able to deep dive and look at players who have, free agency coming up this offseason, but there's always a handful. And I'm sure there will be guys that we can try and lure here. And I mean, Ian, is it similar? Like, because in basketball, I know that's been the case for the Suns, right? It's like, oh, you got Booker, you got KD. This is the place where people want to be. It has in what you've seen and your experience around baseball, is that kind of a similar sentiment that's floated out there where guys want to play with certain players like Aaron Judge, like Corbin Carroll?
Yeah, I don't think it's as prevalent in baseball as it is in basketball, where there's that camaraderie of like, oh, I went to college with this guy, or like, oh, we were at the Team USA camp and we really hit it off, and there's all that goes on. Uh, but it is still there, and I think it's more so seeing. I think that the approach to free agency is more focused on the game. So you do see situations where you're like, oh, this team is really good, but all they're missing is pitching, and I'm a pitcher, so I'm going to go here. Like that seems to occur a lot more than whether or not whether or not a player does want to play with somebody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And that's kind of what I've seen. Like where players are going to kind of go where they're going to get the most, money, the best contract, and maybe even like a city that they might want to live in or could see their family living in. I don't think it's always the other players, but at the end of the day, like Mike, it doesn't hurt, right? Like the better your team's doing, the more attractive of a destination it might seem.
Oh yeah. And for baseball, man, the contracts are so crazy. So if they can bring the dough, it's time to go. But like, I think that's a good comparison too with the NBA. You have to just think about baseball. There's a lot of different moving pieces that have to fit together to be a successful team. Whereas in basketball, if you got two superstars, you can fit another one alongside, you can get far, just with those guys, because there's only 5 on the court. The basketball can only go around so many places. So baseball, you got to have a good bullpen. You got to have 2 to 3 solid starters. You got to have some bats that have power. You got to have speed, good fielding. There's just so much more that goes into it for teams to continue to be successful. So I am 100% alongside with what Ian said, but it never hurts. It never hurts, like you said.
I don't think so. And I know we're kind of bouncing all over the place, but that's kind of the spirit of the roundtable, right? Is we're just here to talk with the boys about some sports. I'm just thinking about this, and I had it noted down here about this Jordan Lawler call up and what it could potentially mean for this team as we make our push here. And I think it's only good things. If you look at what Corbin Carroll did in his short stint when he was called up last season, he played in 32 games at the end of the season. He was hitting 260, had 27 hits and 4 home runs, and just really got the excitement and the juices flowing for this season now. And we've seen that Corbin Carroll has fully come in to be everything that we expected from him. And it's funny when he has an 0 for 4 game, I personally get a little upset because I know he's better than that, but you can't expect him to have, 2 for 5 and a home run every single game. I know that's just not realistic. But Jordan Lawler has 22 games here with the Diamondbacks. That's all that we have left, guys. There's 22 games left in the season. What would your expectations be for him coming up at this point? Do you think we could see similar numbers like what we did with Corbin, batting around 250 with a couple dingers and a handful of hits in there?
I mean, I would say I would hope so. That's where if he's going to be an everyday player for the 22 games, yeah, I'd love to see something similar. Show the power within his bat, get a couple of home runs. I mean, he doesn't have to go 3 for 4 every day. It's just not going to happen anyways. But I just want to see small contributions to start solidifying the future and show that he's a guy, no matter where you put him, he's going to be a future piece of this team. And I think we're pretty solidified that he will be, right? You talk about his solid AA season within, I think, 88 games. I think he hit right around 268. And then just in the short amount of time, he goes up, gets called up, stronger competition. It's hitting over 360. I mean, you don't have to come in and do that right away. It wouldn't be a surprise because, it always takes time for guys to, really gauge a player and get tape on him to scout him properly. So he could come out scorching. That'd be great. But my expectation isn't for him to just come in and put the Diamondbacks over the top to win every single series, right? No, it's do your part, start fitting within this organization, find your footing, learn from those guys around you, especially a guy like Corbin Carroll, who, cross your fingers, I think he's going to be okay after taking one on the wrist today. Got hit twice today, back-to-back plate appearances.
Man.
But that's all you want, right? Fight to the end. That's all I want.
Yeah, I think that, and this does, I think, like I've said, to double down on it, it does give us a good fighting chance and opportunity to be competitive. Along this vein, though, Ian, do you think that Diamondbacks fans should be, wary or temper their expectations on a guy, although he is the top prospect in the organization and one of the top prospects in all of the MLB? He, like Mike said, he started his season in AA. I think spent about a month in AAA and is now already being called up to the MLB to finish his season. Is there any reason to be concerned about, the transition or the competition levels between, AA, AAA, and now into the MLB?
No, I think that the concern is more the other side of it, where I think it's pretty common with late season call ups that the other teams usually don't know how to scout these guys because they haven't seen them in AA, they haven't seen them in AAA. So sometimes these numbers can get inflated, or it could go the opposite direction where Lawler could, he's not used to, big league pitching, things like that. So I think there shouldn't be an expectation on him. I do agree that with what Mike said, where it should be a matter of just getting gelled with the team, figuring out where you fit in the system. That is a better way to go. I do think it's going to lean more in the opposite direction, where I do think he's going to come out hot because of the way he's been playing in the minor leagues. But it shouldn't be seen as a sign of things to come. Come next season when he's starting the season with the team. It's the same thing with Carroll, where Carroll came up and he was hot, but nobody was really holding their breath until the season started and they saw that he was continuing to be hot. I think that that's kind of how Lawler should be assessed as a player now that he's in the big leagues.
And I think that's fair. Like, just to somewhat temper expectations, and even whether he does good or does bad, that is not necessarily an indication of what his long-term success is going to be. It's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, like, he doesn't know how to hit big league pitching. On the other side of that, big league pitching doesn't know how to pitch to him. So it could go either way. So it's basically, no matter what happens to him now, we really, we shouldn't be like, oh, hell yeah, I love Jordan Lawler, or, oh my God, I fucking hate Jordan Lawler, send him back down. It shouldn't be either of those. It's really just like, it's like spring training before spring training for him with playoff implications. Like,
Yeah.
he'll do his thing, he'll be productive, but exactly how you said it, it's not indicative of how he's going to be long term.
And we've seen that before. Like, we've seen the guy, it's gone both ways, right? Where a guy comes in a situation like this, has 30 games or so from September to the end of the season, and he'll either do amazing and be knocking it out of the park, getting hits left and right, and then the next season maybe take a bit of a drop off, or the other side where maybe they're not super comfortable when they first come in, and then they finally find a flow later on. I mean, one guy in particular, I remember, it's probably fucking 3-4 years at this point, but Adalberto Mondesi, I think he played for the Royals. He got called up around this time for the Royals and was just absolutely crushing it, knocking homers, hitting over 300. I'm pretty sure. I think he was even getting stolen bases. Helped a lot of people win their fantasy baseball championships that year. Mike, I guess, I guess I can't ask you because you're not in the fantasy baseball playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, neither is Ian, so you can't just put it on me.
I am dead last, man. Another guy is Gary Sanchez. I mean, he got called up and he was, for a month, he was getting comparisons to Babe Ruth. He was hitting a home run. What, he hit 18 in a month or something like that? Just some stupid number. And then the rest of his career, he was 130. So you just, it's hard to say. And it does go the other direction too, where like Corbin Carroll's a success story of a late season call up. He basically just stayed exactly where he was when he was called up. He didn't drop. That's the goal with Jordan Lawler. I think that's what you're looking for. But you never want to set high expectations on a rookie when they're coming in.
No, that's great. And that's all we can hope for, right? Maybe he gets some good momentum going into the offseason, whether we make a wild card or a playoff push or whatever. Get some kind of similar momentum that you got from Corbin Carroll. And hey, like the beautiful thing about it too is, you set yourself up for the discussions for next year in regard to, hey, if this is our shortstop of the future, what do we do with Perdomo? Do we see if we can transition him to third base? Is there anywhere else that he can play? I mean, the guy was an all-star this year, right? He's had some struggles from the plate over the past couple of weeks, more so, but that happens in the majors, man. Guys go through slumps. We know that. As long as you are able to turn the tide, and it seems like he has done that, more so towards the second half of this season, like this team has done, right? Because we went through the freaking dreads of July where we just absolutely struggled, and this whole team did. But then we got some momentum and turned the ship and are where we are now, looking to fight for our lives to possibly make the playoffs. So these are good problems to have. This is just great times to be a Valley sports fan, guys, especially a baseball fan, man. This is something that this town has been yearning for, almost like it was for the Suns going back to 2020 for a decade, man. Or I guess going back to 2017, the last time that we actually played in the wild card game. So good problems to have.
Yeah, I was talking to Matt about it about an hour ago, about the Lawler call up and Ahmed getting cut. And Perdomo was an interesting problem. I think hindsight is 2020. I think that Perdomo could have been a guy that could have been moved for pitching, really, really good pitching, because he's been an all-star this year. But you could have also have traded Ahmed around the deadline and gotten a reliever or something like that. Cutting Ahmed for nothing, I think, is kind of a silly move at this point. I mean, that's what you had to do now, but then now you have the question, because you kind of have two shortstops. They're like tried and true shortstops, and third base is kind of a revolving door. So now the Diamondbacks are, getting down to the end of the season. They're 6 games coming up against, the team that they have to catch up against. And they now have to figure out, is Lawler going to work at third, or is Perdomo going to work at third? And that's not a situation you really want to be in when you're chasing a wild card spot. But
right, not right now. Those are the problems you want to worry about in the off season, because then you can have plenty of time to figure it out.
Yeah, those are spring training problems.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And a couple things I just thought of on it. One, it'd be great if Matt would ever hop on here and talk to us about it instead of just talking to you about it.
Shots fired.
To call out Matt. But also, second, I wonder that, it's a great point about should they have tried to trade Nick Ahmed, and I wonder if they looked into that kind of to see what the appetite is for a Nick Ahmed, what they might be able to get in return. It does for me a little bit, makes maybe not the timing of it, but it does make sense that if anyone was going to get cut, it was Ahmed. I don't think anyone expected him to be on this roster next season. He was in the last year of his contract here in 2023, and he's making about a little over $10 million, guys. So pretty highly paid shortstop. So I don't know what that looks like, financially or contractually. If you trade a guy like that, I mean, is it prorated? Do you just have to pay whatever left he's owed for this season? Or how much would other teams be on the hook for that?
I should say that it's entirely possible that Nick Ahmed was shopped at the trade deadline. I just didn't see that rumor. And did either of you see, blank team interested in Nick Ahmed? Cincinnati Reds interested? Like any, I just named a random team there. They definitely wouldn't be. That was a bad example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I'm muted, so I'm sitting here agreeing with you. But no, I didn't. I didn't see it anywhere. Yeah. But at the same time, I didn't see rumors of them shopping Josh Rojas either. And then he ended up being a part of that trade. Now I know that's not exactly the same when you're talking about a former Gold Glove winner has been the cornerstone of your infield aside from Paul Goldschmidt for the last decade. But I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't hear that rumor, no. But I wouldn't be surprised if they had him included in some conversation. So I just feel like maybe the appetite just wasn't really there for him. And either that or the return wasn't enough, where a team might've been like, yeah, we'll take Ahmed, but we'll give you some single A player that's never going to be anything.
Yeah. And I think that's two sides of the same coin too, or like maybe the return you were getting for Ahmed was like some bum ass fucking reliever that the Diamondbacks didn't want to begin with. And that's because that other team was thinking that like Nick Ahmed is, a washed up shortstop that they don't want on their team either. So there may have not been a trade in place because neither team thought that the return was going to be worth it.
Yeah. And then also when you factor in, what do you do at the shortstop position? If you don't have another shortstop waiting in the wings, are you just going to tough it out with Perdomo for all of August until you get to September and you can call up Lawler, and then kind of puts a lot of pressure all around to kind of try and piece it together, where they might have felt like at least through August, Ahmed gave them the best competitive edge to be able to have this wiggle room to do this call up now. So could have been part of the plan all along. But we even saw just a few weeks back, or maybe almost a month ago at this point, Carson Kelly get DFA'd. At one point in time, everyone thought he was going to be the future star catcher for this team, and now looks like that's going to be Gabby Moreno. I think every team needs at least 2 solid catchers that you can roll with, but it was clear once Carson came back from the injury, like he just wasn't that dude. So I will just say it again. I'm happy with the moves that they're making and that they're showing the willingness to still be competitive even here into September. And along that, last thing I want to talk on baseball before we move on here. The Angels, like I mentioned, had waived like half of their team. It was Lucas Giolito, who they just got at the trade deadline, Hunter Renfroe, and Randall Gardeck, and a couple other people. I think I got that last name wrong, but a bunch of dudes. Matt Moore hit the waiver wire, and I think a lot of fans were scrambling to try and learn and research what that meant and what the waiver order would look like. But essentially what I was able to gather, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that basically it's priority based off current standings this season. So the worst teams in each conference, they're not conferences, division leagues in each league gets like the first opportunity. So like in the example of the Angels, within that also it's all of the teams in the AL get first pick, and then if none of them want it, then it goes to the worst team in the NL, and then they can have their pick at it. So the Diamondbacks, if that is the case, the Diamondbacks were a real long shot to get any of these guys. But I heard that there were some waiver claims placed. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them was for Lucas Giolito, probably Matt Moore, who's also a relief pitcher. I bet those 2 guys. Honestly, wouldn't even be surprised if they put a claim for Hunter Renfroe. I mean, why not at least try, ask the question. It never hurts to ask. I knew it was a long shot, but again, to tie it, bring it full circle and to make my point here is it shows that they are trying to be competitive. And even here in September, they're trying to make moves to improve this team to the best of their abilities with what they can do. Obviously the trade deadline's passed, so you're really kind of more or less constricted to who you already have in your system. So bringing Lawler up is a good sign. I know there was a point, Mike, where we were saying that they should leave Brandon Pfaadt in AAA for the rest of this season, and now he's looking like maybe the 3rd best pitcher in our rotation.
At this point, I mean, you can't put Zach Davies on any list. He's one of our 5 starters, but I don't even put him as one of the top 5 best pitchers for our team. And Tommy Henry, man, who knows? Is he done for the year? I guess I haven't been seeing enough or being tapped in enough to see if he's ever going to come back. But, Brandon Pfaadt's another guy who's just been streaky. He struggled against Colorado in that second game through 3 2/3 innings. I think gave up the 3 runs, which we ended up losing that game 3-2. But he's been a lot better, since the All-Star break. And, it just sucks when you don't get run support, then all you see on the card is another L. And poor kid finally got his first win in the majors after 3 or 4 solid starts. So I'm with you. I would not be surprised if Lucas Giolito was the one guy that they put a waiver claim in and we just couldn't get it because of where the standings fell. But he struggled with Los Angeles after he was traded from the White Sox too. So I don't know how much of a better situation it would have really been. I mean, what's your psyche go through, right? After you're traded at the deadline, you struggle, you're put on waivers, and then you find yourself having to go out and pitch for a team that's fighting for the playoffs. I mean, is he mentally tough and ready to do that? But I thought that was crazy too, because weren't there guys playing in the game like the day that they were waived?
I wouldn't doubt it. That sounds about right to me.
Like they were waived like an hour before the game started and they still played. Like how I didn't think that was ever allowed. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if it's like I know retroactive isn't the right word, but it's like they announced the waiver, but it's like you're not technically waived till 9 p.m. Pacific time, so you're still on the roster. It's like,
yeah, that's probably it.
It's like today's your last day with the company, but we're going to let you finish your shift and we'll pay you for it.
They were trying to get him some last minute tape so they would for sure be claimed. So the Angels wouldn't have to pay the rest of the salary. I think they were going to end up saving like $7 million or something from all of the waves that they made. But it was just funny to see them playing after, you get the notifications. These guys are out of town. It's like, wait, I thought they were out of town, but they're playing. How is this happening?
Yeah, that's always so funny with baseball because they play. I think they only usually get 1 day off a week throughout the season, and it's funny when I was. I think it was August 1st was the trade deadline, and they were showing like this one stream I was watching was showing a bunch of excuse me, like live streams from the stadium where they're doing batting practice just to see if any guys are like dapping each other up, saying goodbye, like seeing if they could get a little edge on like what might be happening. Because there are guys that like they fully dress and like they show up to the stadium, they're fully dressed, they're ready to play, and then their manager's like, "Hey, you just got traded to Los Angeles." So it's like, oh, guess I'll get on a plane tonight and go to Los Angeles. Like, and that's another crazy thing. Like us normies can't really relate to, where it's like, Ian, what if you got into work tomorrow and your boss calls you into the office and he's like, "Hey, Ian, we traded you to Seattle, man. You got to report there for work tomorrow. There's a lot of work for you to do tomorrow. So hop on a plane. This new company is going to pay for your plane ticket, and you have to relocate your whole family overnight."
I mean, if they adjust my pay for cost of living, I'm cool with it, honestly. It's so dumb to see what the Angels are doing, to be honest. Like I'm glad you brought up the Angels, because holy shit, they really kind of bombed their franchise this season. Like, they could have traded Ohtani and gotten an absolute boatload of prospects back in return. They could have been set for the next 10 years, and they decided, no, we're going to try and stay competitive, and they traded for Giolito, and I don't remember who else. Once they were out of it, they started to waive these guys, and I was like, okay, so Otani's now going to leave for nothing, and you now have less prospects than you did before you started. Basically, you're just going into next season without Renfro, who had been an Angel for a long time, without Giolito, who was an ace in Chicago for a long time. What the fuck are you doing? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, they're going in with an injured Mike Trout, and that's it. I can't. Going back to the question you asked me about if I was a free agent, would it matter you know how the team is doing? There's no chance in hell, if I'm a free agent, am I ever going to the fucking Angels at this point. Like,
Yeah.
they're done, man.
But okay, so it also ties into what I was saying though about, I think baseball players really only care about the money and the dollar signs.
Yeah.
Where they just in 2019 or 2018, whichever, they re-signed Mike Trout to like a massive like $425 million contract that'll have him playing for the team through the 2030 season. So they still got 7 years left of Mike Trout, and they're going to pay him $35 million for the next 7 years to not even sniff the playoffs. If I was Mike Trout, man, and I cared about winning games at all, I would say I've already dedicated the first half of my career, the first, my entire youth. He's now, I think, almost 30, or he is 30, where he's not going to win anything with the Angels. And now I really wonder, with this Shohei Ohtani news, I feel like their logic was, or at least the narrative around it was, that with all those moves they made at the trade deadline, getting Giolito, not trading Ohtani, is that was their bid to show Ohtani, we are a serious organization. We do want to win. We do want to be a playoff team, and we want to build around you. We got you and Trout as the building blocks and the cornerstones. We just need some help around you. And so then you sign these guys. They don't work out. Now you waive half the team. Trout's injured. Ohtani's injured. So this team's bottom of the barrel again. The A's, nobody's looking at the A's to do anything this season. And so if you're Shohei Ohtani, are you even entertaining rejoining them next season, or are you taking any offer to get you off the Angels team?
Oh, hell no. Ohtani said he wants to win. That was the thing. Basically the Angels made that push because he came out and said losing sucks. He knows, just like everyone else on this earth knows, it doesn't matter where he goes. He's getting a bag. And he's absolutely getting the kitchen sink thrown at him. Record breaking, probably. Is he going to be the first 50 million a year player? Like, that's the kind of shit we're talking about when it comes to Ohtani. So if I'm Ohtani, knowing no matter where I go, I'm going to get a bag, and I kind of have the pick of the litter, no matter who throws the money at me, I can just pick the best team. Like I can pick Boston, I can pick New York, I can pick I don't know, fucking Chicago, Houston. It doesn't matter. Like the money can come secondary when you know you're going to be getting generational wealth in the winter.
I think it's crazy too, because he honestly should probably get $50 million a year. You're talking about a guy who can be at the top of your pitching staff and can hit every single night, no matter where you go, because of the new DH rules, right? You're getting too much not to be able to pay a guy like that, and the production that he's going to give you. I mean, league leader in home runs, right? I think still it might be him and Matt Olson, who have been kind of going 1 and 2 for the past couple of seasons. But man, guys, I think it speaks to the ineptitude of the front office, how they have struggled to put anybody around Mike Trout before Shohei comes in. Shohei comes in, is a superstar from the jump. They cannot fit anybody around them again. And then in their last-ditch effort, they fail miserably to the point where they have to cut guys that they traded for. Like, that speaks volumes to the ineptitude of a front office. And I'm no Angels fan. I don't even know what the GM's name is. But you could see from the product on the freaking baseball diamond that this team has sucked for a long time too. So if I'm Shohei Ohtani, I'm not even meeting with the GM this upcoming offseason. I'm fielding any and all offers from anybody else but them, because what a travesty it has been.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you guys. If I were Shohei Ohtani, I'd be running for the hills. I mean, playing alongside Mike Trout is all well and good, but Ohtani doesn't even look happy, man. Like you said it right, Ian. He did come out and say he wants to win, and I think he's smart enough to know that that's not going to happen on the Angels. And this guy's 29 years old, so he's really entering the prime of his career. He's probably got 4 or 5 solid, good years left in him. But I just wonder about, like you said, Mike, he is 2 players wrapped in one, so you pay him $25 million for his batting, $25 million for his pitching. But is that, all of that wear and tear going to really catch up to him later in his career? And are we starting to see that now where he's out with this injury? I think it's a shoulder or an elbow or something like that. They're shutting him down from pitching the rest of the year. They say he's still going to DH, but I was even seeing a report, I think, saying that he might not pitch at all next season, or at least for the first half of next season. And if he does need Tommy John surgery, that's not just season ending, that can be career altering.
Yeah, that's an issue, man. That's an issue. I did not know that. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow, but I think there's a lot of teams who are going to, put their eggs in that basket and see what comes from it, because you're not just talking about production on the field. You're talking about all the different things that come from having a player like Shohei Ohtani, right? You got a country backing you. You're going to have more people buying your merchandise, becoming a fan of your team, all just because of him. But that is scary, because to invest that heavy into somebody to not get your full production from, that's not good, man. And especially a guy who's come into his prime, if he has to have Tommy John surgery and his pitching goes to the wayside, that sucks, man. That would be hard to stomach as a franchise. But the beautiful thing is, as a Diamondbacks fan, we ain't got to worry about that shit, because there's no way in hell we're ever going to be able to freaking sign a guy like that. At least for now. At least for now.
Well, and so this is interesting. I guess now I'm kind of looking into it right now live as we're going through it. Ohtani's already had Tommy John surgery in 2018. There was damage to his UCL, and he had Tommy John. So is that a procedure they can do again? Yeah.
Yes.
You can just keep getting Tommy Johns.
Exactly. It's happened before where players will get Tommy John surgery multiple times. Once you repair that ligament and go back out and start throwing again, it has a higher risk of getting torn again. It's kind of not as strong as it was before the Tommy John surgery, so it's just something you have to keep an eye on and monitor. I do remember that season too, because he was complete ass right before tearing it, and people were kind of saying he was a bust and things like that. It wasn't until 2020 when people started to realize that Ohtani was the franchise player that he is. And I'm curious if maybe some teams will try to sign him and put some kind of clause in his contract, or maybe some teams he used to play right field too when he first came into the league. He was doing right field, DHing and pitching, which is bananas. And maybe some team will want to try and throw him like a bargain price, and they'll say we just want you as a right fielder, or they'll go the opposite way and say we just want you as a pitcher, depending on what they value more. It'll be interesting to see what kind of deals work out. He's not going to sign any of the things I just named, but I do want to see. I'm just excited for the Ohtani free agency, I guess is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see where he ends up. There were talks about the Diamondbacks trading for him and being able to sign him long term. I don't think we're realistically in that talk at all. It's fun to dream. It's free to dream, as Tallman might say, but that's a pie in the sky. I do. That's a great point though, with you mentioning that he played right field and DH. I wonder if that was because of how the league rules were set up, where the pitchers in the NL would bat instead of DH. So maybe when they were playing NL teams, they had Ohtani in there in right field. But now that it's universal DH across both leagues, there's just no need for him to do that anymore. I wonder if that's more of a part of it. But if he's a good fielder too, like, why not? I mean, it's not like that was my old, like, when I first met you, Ian, I wasn't the biggest baseball fan. I kind of made the joke of like, it's such a slow, boring game. You just kind of, if you're a fielder, you just kind of like, you can sit down in the grass for half the game and not do anything. But that also kind of works to the advantage, right? Where it's like, you might only get, half a dozen balls hit your way in a game. You might not have to do that much, to where that's not like on a day off when he's not pitching, going out and standing in right field and shagging a couple balls isn't going to be like detrimental to his longevity at any given season. No, I just think it, and then that's another thing is like, do you need him to play right field so that you can open up another hitter in the DH spot that might not be able to play right field? And I just think that goes into the broader conversation of the Angels getting more pieces to be successful. But once we launch Valley Sports Plug Los Angeles and we fully staff that operation, then we can ask them about it. But for now, I want to stay in the vein of Valley Sports here, and want to talk about the basketball season that is coming up here in just a little over a month. I think middle to end of October is when the NBA gets started back up. But right now, we're in the heart of the FIBA World Cup tournament. It will be wrapping up next week. I think I saw on the 10th. So this actually at the end of this week or beginning of next, depending on how you split up your weeks. But Sunday will be the final. The second half, or it's not the quarterfinal, the half final, I think I saw it's called. Basically, the Team USA is going to go up against Germany, and Slovenia is going to go up against Canada. So we could see a USA-Canada FIBA World Cup championship. But Mike, I know you were really excited to talk about the Suns' new addition, Yuta Watanabe, who's been absolutely killing it for Team Japan. What have you been seeing from him?
Oh, I had to bring it up because Ian, our resident Nets fan, sometimes we just got to rub him a little bit, get him to cry, reminisce on, what he had, but now is here.
What could have been.
Yuta, man, he did some really good things in his time in FIBA play, even though they didn't make it to the knockout round. 5 games, averaged about 15 points, 6.2 rebounds. They finished at the top of their group with a 3-2 record, and they basically punched their ticket for the Paris Olympics. So, that's always something that's super cool to see from, guys playing for their country. And it was just funny to just see him out there. He looked like a giant for Team Japan, right? And he's a guy who's, 6'7", 6'8", but he had some cool blocks. Didn't shoot that great from outside, but, that's going to be his bread and butter and what he's really going to have to, make an impact for when he comes to the Phoenix Suns. But Ian, did you see anything from FIBA with Yuta? And just, tell us once again how sad you are that he's no longer on the Brooklyn Nets.
I didn't see anything FIBA related regarding Yuta, other than he's just he's the glue guy on that team. I did really love Yuta on the Nets. He's gonna win your heart in Phoenix for sure. He definitely went there for Kevin Durant. He plays incredibly well next to him. Usually when Kevin Durant is in the post or just looking for a shot on the outside, he can kick it out to Yuta, who always finds a way to be open on the three. He's also sneaky good at defense. He can lock down people. I think he'll win a game or two in those in those lineups where it's going to be Kevin Durant in the second unit. I think that those are going to be the games where you're going to come on here and go, wow, look at Yuta last night. Like it's he's a fun player. He's got a really good heart. I do miss Yuta a lot. I will miss Yuta, I should say, since the season hasn't started yet. Um, I don't hate him for his move or anything like that. I mean, it makes sense. He's ring chasing a little bit, but he also knows that he developed a friendship with Kevin Durant, so it's a little bit more than just saying like, "Oh, I want to go to Phoenix because I want to win a ring."
Yeah, and I don't think it's just because he wants to win a ring as well, but he's going to be given an opportunity to come off the bench, be a contributor. Like you said, he could win some games for us just from his, extreme outside shot. Just a top notch, man. I love what the kid can do. Go off the dribble as well. Big body, can finish inside, isn't scared to attack the rim either. But I think like a lot of these guys that the Suns got with, Bates Job, these are 1-year deals, even though they're 2 years, right? But they're player exceptions, right? So that second year they can cut out of it, and a lot of these guys are basically on the prove it deal, so they can see if they can get paid in the off season. And this is a great place for these guys to contribute and go get their money, like the Bruce Browns of the world. You know what I mean? Like, I would not be surprised to see, if Yuta is successful with the Phoenix Suns, go out and get a Cam Johnson-like contract, 4 years, $80 million, something like that, where you'll be like, wow, he really got the bag, with playing 20 minutes a game for the Phoenix Suns. And hopefully he'll be able to go and flourish somewhere else. But I'm seeing a lot of these guys just as rental players for the Phoenix Suns this year. And unfortunately, we're probably going to fall in love with them, and then they're going to be gone just like that. The one guy I think about is Jock Landale. I was hoping he'd be able to come back, but then he goes and gets his money from the Houston Rockets. So I'm not getting too attached, right? We haven't even played any basketball yet. So, who knows? There's going to be one of those guys that we're going to be yelling at on the TV screen day in, day out, unfortunately. Hopefully it's not him, but I can't get too attached too early.
Nah, that's a ton of all the basketball really ahead of us. And I know everyone's already writing the Suns into the playoffs, obviously, and probably, hopefully, I don't want to say probably, but hopefully the finals. But that's what people are saying. I mean, you just look at the way the roster is constructed right now. There's so much talent. We haven't had this much bench depth since maybe 2005. It's really a lot of cause for optimism. And Mike, you and I talked about Yuta on Past the Outlet a couple episodes back and showed some clips of this guy. He's a Kevin Durant guy. They built that bond and that camaraderie on the Nets, and Kevin really trusts him. And when you bring him into a situation like that, where he's building his confidence through playing with the Nets, playing with Kevin Durant, now playing in this international tournament, being that guy for Team Japan, I've said it before, there's going to come a point in time in this season when Kevin Durant misses some games. I don't want to foreshadow any serious injuries. Hopefully it's not a significant amount of games, but guys, let's be realistic. Let's look at the history of it all. Kevin Durant is going to miss games. Brad Beal's going to miss games. Devin Booker is going to get his seasonal wintertime hamstring injury and probably miss some games. And so we're going to need guys like Yuta to come step in, fill in, probably starting at some point, at least for a handful of games, and be competitive and keep us on track to be one of the top teams in the West and reach that ultimate goal of the NBA Finals and hopefully bringing the first championship here. You're absolutely right, Mike. These guys are rental players. It's going to be hard to not fall in love with them and to not fall in love with this team. If the product on the court is everything that we've been promised and these guys can really put it together, I think there is so much room for optimism. But I think, like we were kind of talking about when we were talking baseball, is like in the NBA, these guys look at the way the roster is constructed and they say, I want to be a part of that. Like maybe I could go get some money, a little more money somewhere else, but I want to take a 1-year contract to kind of bet on myself, play with a good team, get some good exposure, learn something from good coaches, good players, and then parlay that into a big final contract. Yuta is going to be 29 in October. His birthday is the day after mine, the day after Ketel Marte. And so he's no spring chicken, Mike. When it comes to professional sports in the NBA, it seems like you got from like 18, 19 to your mid 30s. So he's about the halfway point in his potential, as far as NBA player goes. And the guys who play into their mid to late 30s are usually the superstars. You don't see too many role players hanging out in the league for that long. So Yuta's in a prime spot to do exactly what you're talking about. Get some good film, get some good experience, and then potentially be a starter on another team, a couple years down the line. Or maybe the Suns find a way to keep him around if he really separates himself from the pack and is going to be maybe our sixth man off the bench. I'm not really too sure what that looks like right now. But yeah, I'm stoked for Yuta. I'm really excited with the way this team's been constructed. Kind of staying in the vein of the FIBA World Cup and all this basketball that's been happening in the offseason. Did you guys see the comments that were made by the Team USA sprinter Noah Lyles? Are you keeping up on this? Basically, here's what it says. That he said, the thing that hurts me the most is I have to watch the NBA Finals, and they have world champion on their head. World champion of what? The United States? Don't get me wrong. I love the U.S. at times, but that ain't the world. And so got a mixed bag of reactions. A bunch of NBA players jumping in and reacting to it. You got Kevin Durant there. Somebody help this brother. Draymond Green, when being smart goes wrong. You got Kendrick Perkins, Aaron Gordon, Tyler Hero.
Dude, that's my favorite one. Aaron Gordon, whatever. I'm smoking buddy in the 200 meters. Yes. That's not happening. But, this is one of those things, Chris, that when it came across my timeline, I just really glanced over it. I took a look at it. I said, all right, buddy, make your comments. And then I moved on with my life because I don't care. Like, the NBA is the top league in the world. And you have to say that now because of the influx of European and the best players outside of the United States coming to play in this league. I mean, you can look, as much as we don't want to talk about it, you can talk about Luka Doncic playing with Real Madrid, which was one of the best leagues in the world as well, playing at a high level, being young. What does he do? He comes to the NBA. That's what guys do. It's the best players in the world at this point. So you can label it world champion, whatever. I mean, I look at it as just who won the NBA finals. I don't really look at world champions, whatever. Or it's the same way for football. I'm like, who won the Super Bowl? It's like, that's just how I see it. But who cares, man? Who cares?
Yeah, honestly. And I don't want to hate on this guy too much. And obviously, like, a month ago, nobody knew who Noah Lyles was. But I'm on your side, Mike. I think I'm on the side of these NBA players as well, where it is the best players in the world. Like, you could put the Charlotte Hornets up against Real Madrid, and I bet you Charlotte is going to win that game 9 times out of 10. Because even though they're not the best team in the NBA right now, they're still filled with a roster of the best basketball players in the world. And it is such an international game. I mean, what is it, like the last 5 NBA MVPs have all been from other countries? Joel Embiid, Giannis, Nikola Jokic. It's the place where all the I know I'm just repeating what you said, but it's the place where all the best players in the country come to play. Not the country, the world. And you can say it's like, oh, well, they're just trying to get the money. No, that's not the case, because with being the best, you get the most money as well. Like, if these guys just love basketball, and I know, like, some people I've seen in this conversation hang their hat on, well, Doncic said that the European basketball is a lot tougher and a lot more physical. It's like, maybe, but did he say that it's a better brand of basketball? Did he say it's easier or more difficult? I don't think so. Like, if those guys playing in Spain in the Euro League or whatever it is were truly better than NBA players, Why would they just hang out over there making less money? Why wouldn't they come play on an NBA team, make good money, set their families up for generations to come, and compete at the highest level? Because honestly, like, it is the highest level. And we see even with Team USA, they don't have the cream of the crop when it comes to NBA talent. There's no slouches on that team, don't get me wrong, but it's not, you don't have the old guard of, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul. You don't even have Devin Booker. You don't have Kevin Durant. You don't have the guys that are the American superstars in the league right now playing in this FIBA tournament. And I'm sure they will build out that roster for the Olympics next year and fully expect them to run the slate. But it's funny because on the heels of this, Team USA did take one loss in this FIBA basketball tournament to Lithuania. They lost 110-104. From looking at the roster, the only player I recognized was Jonas Valanciunas.
Jonas Valanciunas doing it to the USA. Uh-oh. Watch out.
But, I mean, Valanciunas is a vet, and that's another thing. It's like when you are the best and you're America and we put us out there as world champs, the best in the world, you're going to have a target on your back. Like, it's a chance. Every team that goes against the Team USA in this basketball tournament, that's their NBA Finals. That's their Super Bowl. This is their chance to play the biggest game of their entire lives against some of the best players in the world and maybe get noticed by one of these teams where it's like, oh, okay, maybe we will entertain, or look into this guy from this country that we've never considered because he didn't play in college. He maybe isn't playing on the best team in any of these other leagues in the world. And so this is a chance for them to get noticed, and maybe they can parlay that into being on an NBA roster. So there's a reason for that, Mike, right? Like, it's funny because I even think I saw Drake, of all people, chime in and he kind of roasted this Noah guy a little bit. I think I did have the exact quote up here, but just to save us some time, it was something along the lines of like, oh, buddy thought this was going to be so hard. He probably practiced this speech in front of the mirror the night before thinking he was really going to make a big name or a big wave for himself or something like that. But like I said, nobody knew who Noah Lyles was a month ago. And I'm not trying to minimize him. It sounds like he's one of our best, sprinters on our Olympic team. And I'm going to wish him the best in the 2024 Olympics and hope that he really shows out in his event for our country. Semantic argument, I guess you're right. It's not an international league because even though there is one Canadian team in the Raptors, it's still just North America. But there's no way to, outside of these FIBA tournaments, there's no way to realistically make the NBA an international sports league. You can't travel intercontinentally and play an NBA season. It's just not feasible. So I know the NFL is having those conversations about expanding into Europe, and there's a lot of players already complaining about what a logistical nightmare that would be. And that's a sport where you play once a week and you have bye weeks in there. Whereas you're talking about basketball where you're playing 3-4 games a week. It's just not possible. So it is what it is. But I think absolutely world champs is a fair title for the NBA champions. And nobody thinks of that. Like, honestly, who thinks of that? Like I just think they won the NBA championship. They're the best team.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm confused. Like, where did this stem from? Like, why is this on the top of his brain? Because he wanted to call himself a world championship sprinter. And like, then he thought about, well, the NBA gets to call themselves world champions. Why does that happen? Like, maybe he doesn't watch the game, because I don't think of NBA champions who wins the NBA finals as world champions. That doesn't come to my mind when I think about it. I say, who won the finals? Who won the finals last year? Like, that's the only way I think of it. So I'm confused where this truly stemmed from and why it came to fruition at all. Maybe it's because of the dry time in sports that we were going through. But yeah, I'm not gonna drag this kid down. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions and their own thoughts, and specifically for somebody who is in like an Olympic event, which is truly a world event, right? Like, he has a different viewpoint on that. I'm not really following Olympic sports like that all the time. So it's just odd. Like, I hope you win the 200 meters, man, because Aaron Gordon's, he's coming for you, man. Watch out. You're muted, Chris.
Damn it. No, but you're absolutely right. I like I said, I'll root them on. Wish you the best. But we've seen other athletes like Tyreek Hill in football was talking about he was a sprinter in high school and I think college too. So I don't think Aaron Gordon's going to bust out and join the track and field team for Team USA. But I do wish Noah Lyles all the best. Like I said, we'll be rooting for him in 2024. But Mike, we're about an hour 35 in right now. Looks like Ian had to cut out. He will not be rejoining us for the remainder of this stream. But I do want to talk a bit of pop culture and some of the more specifically video games in the pop culture. I had another couple topics here to toss your way, and maybe we can touch on them if we have time. I'm not. Are you stressed for time? You got dinner to make or anything like that?
Well, I got dinner to eat, but I'm good, man. Let's roll with it.
Okay, hell yeah. So Mike, you texted me and you're really excited for Starfield. It was officially released today. It is available on next gen Xbox. It's Xbox exclusive, right? It's a Microsoft exclusive.
It's Xbox and PC exclusive.
And PC. There you go. Had to be on PC, of course. So you're excited about this one. Are you getting it day one, or are you getting it in the near future?
Well, I think we might have had some communication switched up here, Chris, because I knew it's a big topic within that culture right now because of Bethesda trying to kind of come back and the Xbox exclusivity that they have with that. I've never really been a big Bethesda guy. And RPGs, the way that I tried Fallout 4, couldn't get into it. But this is one where I look like I'm kind of interested. I want to see what comes with it. But now that I have an actual gaming PC, I can actually play it because I don't have any of the new consoles. But what about you? Are you thinking about dipping your toes into Starfield?
Yeah, I'm curious about it. I'm real similar to you. I tried to play Fallout 3, I think, way back in the day on my 360, and I got burnt out real quick. It's Bethesda games in general are a lot of grinding, from what I've been able to gather. I did play Skyrim for a little bit as well. I've never been too much into the, what do you call it? Like the open world RPGs, which is funny because I'm a big nerd. I play RuneScape, but that's a little bit of a different kind of RPG. It's not really linear. Like, these games do have a story where you can beat the game in a reasonable amount of time, where beating the game in RuneScape is, well, we're not even going to get into that. I'm not going to bore you with the details of that. But to answer your question, and even another topic I had written down here, because you're all in on the PC. You got your gaming PC all set up. I've said it for almost a decade now. I definitely want to get a good PC gaming setup, but I am, since 2008, no, even before then, I have been a console gamer my entire life. I've had my Xbox Gold subscription since I think 2007, 2008, started playing Halo 3 and Call of Duty 4. So just like my heart and my familiarity is with console gaming. And I get that you can plug in your controller, you can play your PC just like a console, but it's different than, and even still, you could still do it. But what my point and what I'm fall back to is I love having it on my big 70-inch TV in the living room and sitting on the couch and kicking my feet up and chilling out with my controller in my living room, where yes, you could set up your PC in the living room. Yes, with most new smart TVs, you can set up your computer to there too. But Xbox really in the last decade has really transitioned into being like a full on like home entertainment device where you got all your streaming services set up through there. I don't know if you know this, but like most smart TVs, they do have like streaming set up where you can just, go on the Netflix app through your TV. But the stream quality isn't always going to be as good as if you stream it off of your Xbox or your PlayStation, just because of the operating power. Like from my very limited understanding of it is that these smart TVs have like the bare minimum processing capabilities and components to be able to do that streaming, where at least, I don't know about you, it could just be where I live in the Valley, Santan Valley, where sometimes it'll downgrade from 1080 to like 720 or 480, where it's like I'm watching some blurry episode of How I Met Your Mother. And it's usually, brief, but my point being is I'm committed to the console. I'm not going to be able to play Starfield until I upgrade. I think in the next couple months here, I think I decided, and just actually recently, that I am going to get the next gen console. Hopefully still keeping that dream alive of getting a gaming PC one day. But right now, my heart is set on getting the next gen Xbox.
There
So I'm
you
gonna check
go.
out Starfield. I think I'm gonna check it out.
There
It's
you
on Game
go,
Pass,
man.
so might as well.
It was funny. You were starting to contradict yourself a little bit with every thing that you would bring up, but then it's like, well, no, you could do it with PC. You could but I feel you, Chris. I was the same way, right? I was an original Xbox guy, and I was an only Xbox guy, right? I wasn't a PlayStation person. Like, I'm not getting the PS2 or PS3. I was playing the original Halo on the freaking old Xbox. I remember ESPN 2K5 being my favorite sports game with Terrell Owens on the front. Just a lot of great memories. Freaking achievement hunting when the 360 came out, trying to get 100% on games. And then just, I don't know, as you get older, it just becomes a little bit different. I had one of the original Xbox Ones, and when games started to come out, my console just, the poor thing was so beat up, couldn't keep up anymore. So I went for, I don't know, probably 2-3 years without consistently gaming at all. And then finally, when we started to get more into VSP and what we've been doing here and doing all the edits, I said, I think it's time to invest in a PC that has the operating power that I need for editing. But why not just add the cherry on top to throw gaming on it as well? So shout out Jack. He's the one who hit me up with all the specs to get what I needed. And unfortunately, Chris, I think what's happened over the past couple of years, because I am such a heavy single player gamer, I love story-driven games. I love getting immersed within a world. And you might say, well, how do you not like the possibility of doing Starfield, right? Now I'm pulling at you. I'm contradicting myself a little bit. There's just different versions, right? I loved Assassin's Creed. I loved so then when I got my PC, I basically went into the back catalog of everything PlayStation because, Naughty Dog has a great track record with The Last of Us and the Uncharted games, and just went through, burned those down to the ground, played the Spider-Man games. And the unfortunate thing with Xbox and Microsoft is I just haven't seen the dedication to true single player IPs that are really capturing my interest going back to the Xbox One, man. Like everything that I've played up until my thing went kaput, what you could find on PlayStation, but there was never those Xbox exclusives like we got at the beginning of the era with Halo and Gears of War and whatnot. And Xbox just hasn't caught up when it comes to that. So I think I told you, if I do get another console, I think it's going to be a PS5, which is crazy to me after growing up being 13, 14 years old, cracking open NBA Live 2002 with Steve Francis on the cover for the first time, telling myself I'm never going to play anything but Xbox for the rest of my life. And it's funny how the world changes, but got some cool games coming up too, man. Cyberpunk 2077 has a DLC coming out. That game is finally fixed after 3 years. We got Spider-Man 2 coming in October as well. So lots of long nights on this computer. So I apologize to my fiance.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I might need to get on more of the single player games because I was just thinking about that last night. Like, I've always been a lot more into the sports games than I feel like you are. Where right now I'm playing MLB The Show, and I just recently started playing Madden again because I kind of play the sports games with the seasons. But I was really disappointed with NBA 2K23. I think it was. I think that was the last one that came out. So I'm not going to rush out and get 2K24. Like, honestly, I played full price for 2K23 and definitely did not get my money's worth out of it. I think I've probably played a collective 4 hours of it, which isn't a lot. I don't know if anyone is not a gamer, but that is not a lot when it comes to how much time you can really put into a game.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you buy a physical copy of it, or did you do it the digital download like a lot of things are nowadays, right? Because brick and mortar stores are going to the wayside. But did you buy a physical copy because Devin Booker was on the cover?
That's a great question, Mike. And I was holdout for a long time of always getting the physical copies. GameStop, though, is just absolute garbage now. It doesn't make any sense to buy physical copies.
But
and we
the
even
one
talked about it.
time,
I know.
the one time to get it because your boy's on the cover, you don't. This is when you turn. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It is ridiculous. I should have bought it at least to display, and maybe I still could. Maybe I can go buy it. I'll check on Amazon right now.
Dude. Now you could go on Etsy and get some kind of printout post of it, or you can just get the poster. You don't need to. Don't be giving 2K any more money, dude. Did you see what they're doing with the season pass stuff now? As if the VC hasn't been, something that started to kill the game over the past couple of years. Now they're adding season pass stuff. Have you seen that?
I feel like you had sent me something, and I full disclosure, I did not look into it at all. But what's going on? Is it like a battle pass type?
Pretty much, right? Like you get the normal game, and then if you pay $10, you get certain amount of levels or whatever, and then there's a $20 version as well where you can get level skips or something. It's just boggles my mind, man. Like, how are we? And that's where my love for sports games has died over the past couple of years. Not that I don't enjoy content creators who do Madden Ultimate Teams or MLB The Show Ultimate Teams. FIFA. I know that's literally the cards in FIFA that people buy packs for is $1 billion industry itself for EA, just from those packs. But it continues to let these companies get away with the dog shit that they continue to put out year in, year out without really crafting and making sure that the game is ready to go, because it's just, a title update with the new players added in, the rookie classes and whatnot. It's like they continue to not build out the game properly and give you really $70 worth of an experience. And now you have to spend even more money on top, especially if you do 2K and you want to play online and not grind it out and actually play with people. You got to spend $50 more to be an 85.
Oh, at least that much more. Yeah, Mike, you're not wrong. It's the way that they've gone about this, and it's all chasing profits, right? Because they're raking in the dough from all this DLC, and people are more than willing to spend $200 or more on NBA 2K, from the game to the additions. And it's completely broken the online experience. Like, you and I, who are guys that are more casual gamers when it's really all said and done, you remember, it was probably 5 or more years at this point. We had bought, I think, 2K17 or it was
the one with Kyrie Irving on the cover. So was that 16? Do I even have it over here anymore? No, I don't even have it over here anymore.
16. What's it?
But
16?
yeah, we bought the game. I remember us going online. We're like, hell yeah, we're in our brown clothes.
Yeah.
You just popped up in the game.
It was 2K18.
We couldn't get guys we couldn't get a third player to play with us.
Yeah. Well,
because I didn't want to spend extra money. Ridiculous.
And that's what's even more funny is, like, we've talked about this before. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show or not. I do want to get into season pass, but just real quick on the point of, like, yeah, you can play with guys in the park or in the rec or whatever it is who have a high level player, 80, 90, 99, whatever, but they don't know basketball. They know the video game, but they don't know basketball. It's where it's like us at 65, 70 overall rating are still able to use our basketball knowledge and basketball IQ to translate into the video game to still be competitive. But nobody wants to give us a chance because they just look at our level and it's like, I'm not playing with that guy. He didn't spend an extra $20 to get the Hall of Fame edition.
Christian thinks that we're nerds. Thanks, Christian.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. But yeah, the season pass. So what is it? You get level up rewards. So now there's levels because there's seasons. It's not just you continue to move your player up. You get 40 my team or my career credits. You get level skips. Like I don't even know. Chris, it's been so long that I've played 2K. I don't even know if I'd be good at the game, really, to be honest with you. Back in the day when I think, was it 2K11, the first time that they brought back Michael Jordan, like I destroyed that game. But that also was before they really added in slower movements, more realistic, just general basketball style gameplay. And they cut down on, your ability. If you make the right decision and you make the right pass, you can get a good jump shot wide open and it's going in 90% of the time, right? When they started to change that to the shot meter even more, and it's like percentage contested, like I got left behind, dude. Like, I guess you call me the boomer of video game generations. Like I just didn't have the patience or the wherewithal to learn how to be great at that game anymore. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll come back to it. But if this is the model that keeps going on, I'm not going to be able to find myself purchasing this kind of shit, dude. It's the same thing with Madden. Yes, I would love to go out there and scramble with Kyler Murray, but I can go and pop in freaking Madden 2011 and have more modes than they do now. Like, it's ridiculous. And it's not anything new. Like, we're not shedding light on things that people don't know about if you're within this community. But for something to have consistently been going on for a decade, and these companies like EA and 2K not make any adjustments because the bankroll keeps coming in, you're just stuck in the mud, man. And like, I'm not going to support it because I don't have the time. I also just get frustrated with sports gaming, man. When I lose, like, I'm going to break my TV. So I just bought a PC. I don't want to break anything and have to spend more money. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things with sports games versus like a shooter or an RPG. It's like, in an RPG, you're going through a story and maybe you come across a boss or a part in the story where it's kind of hard for you to get by, but it's a challenge and you can overcome it and move on. Whereas when you're playing a sports game, you invest, 30, 40 minutes, an hour into one game, and then you lose at the buzzer or elsewise. It's like, I personally, when I do that, I feel like I almost, wasted an hour of my time. Or, when I'm playing with 2K and it comes down to a game-winning shot and I miss, I'm like, well, fuck, there goes 45 minutes of my life.
Right.
I'm never going to get back. And granted, even if I win, what did I really get out of it other than that quick little dopamine rush or whatever? But I do love gaming. I'm not trying to knock that or anything, but it just seems like there's a fine line, right, between like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and also trying to progress your product, where I felt like 2K had really reached its peak from like you said, like 2011, 2012 to probably 2020, 1920. Those were some really good NBA 2Ks, but you're right. They've year after year started to slow it down some more. And I know that they build themselves as a basketball simulation. That's why NBA Live died, is because 2K absolutely dominated the market, showed that they was a superior game. But like I said, after playing 2K23, they've gone too far in that direction, and I think they've lost track of it. It's a game, guys. It is a game. It needs to be playable. It needs to be fun. And when I'm doing very fundamentally sound things and missing a left-handed layup because the animation is so goddamn slow, it's when I pull a wide open three-pointer and I miss it because my meter was this far off, it's not fucking fun anymore, man. And it's just a grind. And on top of that, when you consider, like we were talking about, where guys like you and I, we would rather buy the game for whatever $60 it is and play the game and grind it out versus a guy who will just buy $100 worth of VC on day one to have his level 85, level 90 overall created character just so he can go online and play with other people like that. So where it's like, it just makes it not fun. And I know, like, sitting here talking about it now, like, a part of me will be interested in giving 2K24 a shot just to see if they kind of go back to, because even last year, I think 2K22, I liked that game. I played the shit out of that game. It was really, really pretty good. They changed it a little bit from the previous year, but not so much to where it wasn't at the core of it the same game, where I just felt like 2K23 was a completely different game that I just did not enjoy whatsoever. So I'd hate to see the death of 2K, but if it takes them putting out a couple bad games to figure it out, okay. But it's not just, I can't believe that it's just me, but with all these things that they're doing, they're just seeing dollar signs. I don't think they care about how many people are online, how many people are purchasing the game.
Dude, it's tough because, I mean, video games now is $1 billion industry as well. And like the culture of 2K is huge. I mean, you have all these content creators, right? You have 2K teams. Like there's 18
There's a whole NBA
to 20
sponsored league.
There's 18 to 25-year-old kids who literally their job is to play 2K. And like that's video games as a whole, right? The industry continues to move forward. So if you're consistently seeing those dollar signs, there's just no need for these companies to try and move the needle to service the community and the people who have been in it, since the beginning, because they're still making so much money. They don't give a shit, dude. They know that the copies are going to sell. I mean, that's why Madden ships every year as a half-broken game, because people buy the hell out of it. I mean, and it's so sad, dude, because some of my on YouTube, I'm a big consumer of YouTube. It's not just shout out because we're streaming on YouTube right now, but I love, there's a guy from Canada, TD Barrett. He plays Madden. Like that's his thing, dude. And he does seasons where he'll pick a team and go into the off seasons and make trades and that kind of stuff. And I still can't find myself, ponying up the money to purchase the new Madden to play it for myself, because I just know how frustrated I'm going to get. I mean, like the last time I had Season Pass, I downloaded Madden 23. I played like 3 games. I barely knew what the hell was going on, and I won 2, lost 1, and I was like, that's it, dude. I can't do it no more.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
That's just okay. Now I sound like I'm the old man on the rocker on the front porch, right?
Back in my day.
Sorry, folks. That's where it's going, right? I'm almost to the point I'm playing in 35 plus basketball leagues. So sue me. I'm getting there.
And maybe that's just what it is, man. Maybe we're just growing up. Because I remember I used to be able to sit there and play 2K for hours on end, and now any sports game I play, like even 2K, when I was still enjoying it, like I would play one game and then be like, I really don't have the energy or the willpower to sit here and play another whole 30, 40-minute game. And that's what I'm running into with the games I'm playing now, and which is why I said I might need to expand my horizons and start checking out some of these RPGs. Is that that's kind of been my thing lately, is I played one game in the show, a 9-inning game, takes about 45 minutes. And then I don't want to do that again. So I fire up Madden and I play one game of Madden. It was, again, like 30, 40 minutes. And then I'm good. And then I've also added Apex into the mix again.
That's right.
Because I do like my shooters. Apex is one of the best Battle Royale games out there. You should go check it out. But Mike, I think we're getting close to the end and wrapping this up here. While we're still talking video games, though, I did want to talk a bit. We talked about Bethesda. They got their Starfield game that just came out. It's the first new IP for Bethesda in 25 years. They had the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series. And now they have Starfield. So I'm sure there will be spinoffs of this and more games to come in the Starfield series. But another giant in the RPG world is Rockstar Games. And for over a decade now, we've been hearing about GTA 6. And I think at this point it's been confirmed. It's in the works. There's no release date. There's not too much. I can't trust any of these leaks that come out because it seems like it's all just GTA 5 mods and other things like that.
That's true.
But did you see this report that GTA 6 might cost $150 on release?
Excuse me? How in the hell is that a possibility? Please explain to me how a game will need to be $150 at release.
I have no clue. I don't know if that's just they're banking on the thirst and the desire for people to want to get this game. And is it really going to have $150 worth of content to offer on release? Like, I think Rockstar is smart enough to not do this like Cyberpunk did and release a half-ass game, which I think is why it's taken over a decade for them to get this out. But it sounds like from all the rumors, however much you can trust him, is that this is going to be the most massive world for this type of game you've ever seen. It's going to be, obviously, there's going to probably have the main storyline. There's talks of having the first female protagonist. But then also the online play. I'm sure that with the success of GTA 5 online, I think that's probably going to be where they really spend a lot of their focus in making that something that they can, again, probably juice for the next 10 to 15 years in GTA 6. And I don't want to say it could be the end of the GTA franchise, because who could really say? But man, yeah, I'd have to really see it laid out in front of me to justify paying $150 for a game that you're going to play on a $500 console, or likely a PC. Will probably be the best avenue to go there.
You know, I better get a freaking art book. I better get a CD. I better get some like wheel spinners, like a water bottle. Like, it better be a damn collector's edition if I'm spending that much money. You can't tell me that I'm going to buy, especially by the time that this comes out. I mean, I know a lot of people have transitioned to pretty much just downloading their games, right? So you're not going into your brick and mortars, like I said, anymore. But to pay $150 just for a download, like, get the fuck out of here, man. Hell no. But there's going to be if you're going to do that, you better hit every facet right at the marker, right at the start. Like you said, you can't have a Cyberpunk 2077 disaster, right? I think one of the other things is what's been really famous with GTA, like the role playing, right? Where you pick a character, like guys are police officers or like janitors, and you just go about your day, and people make a whole bunch of content about that. I think I might have heard that Rockstar kind of bought the license to do that, so they might be incorporating that in their online mode as well. But Chris, I think this is where we're at as far as consumers within the gaming stratosphere, as well as, you know, there's very few of us that are left that are single player only kind of people, and games of service is just the norm nowadays, right? You see the success of Fortnite, Apex Legends, like you say, even Call of Duty to a point, right? Where you'd have Modern Warfare, they build it for 1 year and then they just continue to add content to that, so you can have this game stretch out for years and years and years. And you can't tell me that GTA 5 didn't deserve to have DLC storyline content within that, right? I wouldn't have been surprised if it was something that was built within the structure that they were going to have at Rockstar for that game. But then as soon as online came out and fixed the kinks with that too, because remember that drop when we was still on freaking 360? What a disaster that was that first day. I remember us at Comanche trying to all load in, and nobody could basically get through their create a character stage. But, you know, they saw the progress of that, the real high level and the money that was coming in from that. And they said, scrap the DLC. We don't need to even do it anymore. So yeah, it might be kind of like a last hurrah from GTA, because this cycle took 12 years. What's the next one going to take? 24?
Yeah.
I might have carpal tunnel by that time. I don't even know if I'll be able to freaking play with a controller.
Yeah. They'll have to re-release it for the Xbox Series Z and all the future consoles that come, and then re-release it and then give you the Game of the Year edition. And yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's what we're starting to see, is like they want the cow that they can keep on milking, not just the one and done, you know, here's a game, go play it. It makes a little bit of sense from a, capitalist perspective of you want something that's going to be profitable and get you the most amount of profits. But from the gaming experience, it does kind of suck, because this is kind of the environment we're left in with this pay to win, this really pay to play. Like, you can get the game, but you're going to have to grind it out unless you pony up some extra cash on the side. But we'll have to deep dive, do a full on pop culture stream, maybe here on the next roundtable or so. But Mike, this has been one of our longest streams of the year. Pretty glad we got to come here and talk. I want to thank Ian for joining us. I know he had to run and cut out, but he's usually always here on these roundtables, and really appreciate his input on everything. But Mike, before we get out of here and I let you eat dinner, is there anything else you want to tell the people?
No, man, dude. I can't wait, dude. I feel like the past month, this is all I've been saying, is like football season. It's here. Like, the Arizona Cardinals are playing on Sunday. Football itself begins tomorrow. The regular season, like, we're here. And basketball is right around the corner. I mean, I can't get any more excited than where we're at right now. But let's keep it rolling, baby. Pittsburgh, here we come.
Sir, a week from Friday, we will be in the Berg. We're going to travel from Phoenix to Pittsburgh, and we're going to check out some games. So make sure you're checking us out on all our social media so you can see what we're getting into. I'm sure we'll have some little TikToks and tweets maybe up there. So make sure you're following us at AZ_VSP on Instagram, Twitter, now X, TikTok, and Instagram. Also, Valley Sports Plug on YouTube and Facebook. Yes, Nico, football is back. Like Mike said, starting tomorrow, the Chiefs are going to take on the.
Is it Chiefs? I thought it was. Oh, is it Chiefs Lions? Is that tomorrow? Does that sound right? I was going to say Chiefs Bills,
Chiefs.
but
Chiefs Lions. You're right. Chiefs Lions.
Got it.
5:20 Arizona time. So I'm going to be checking that out. Obviously, Cardinals this week, Sunday, going up against the Commanders. Start their season with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. So. Man, that means we're going to have to start our Arizona Cardinals recaps, Mike, every week throughout the season. So you definitely got to make sure you're following us so you can check all those out. But, Mike, appreciate you, dog. I'm glad we got to have this stream tonight. Make sure you guys all tune in for our next one. We'll keep coming at you with content every single week for the rest of the year. Plenty of recaps and live streams to come. But for Michael Benjamin, Kruver, and I am Chris Patrick, and we'll see you next time. Peace.